All right, you know the drill. For the past few years, we have been referring to NHL Rank King on Twitter, because what Mason Black does is he makes comprehensive lists as to the NHL prospects and just how good they really are. This is a list of the top 10 prospects in the NHL right now, so prospects actually drafted by NHL teams, not including the draft-eligible ones for the future and beyond, ranked by PNHLE, which stands for Projected NHL Equivalency Scores. These scores are given to players based off of how many points they get in their leagues at the moment, what position they play, and it balances everything out to give you a general idea as to who's good and who's hot. So, without further ado, here are the 10 NHL-affiliated prospects who have dominated their leagues so far, and thus are placed onto this list. The 10th best prospect drafted into the NHL, and I'm starting at number 14 because there are a few players in this list that are undrafted, is Isak Rosen out of the Rochester Americans' Buffalo Sabres prospect. He started out this season at the time of this list's publication with 6 points in 4 games played for Rochester. He's a first-round forward drafted a few years ago back in the 2021 draft, and he had a really strong season last year in the AHL, posting up 37 points in 66 games, a great transition from Sweden. If he's able to be over a point per game this year, though, it would bode very well for his projection heading into the long-term future as a potential middle-to-top 6 forward for the Sabres. The 9th best prospect in the NHL is Andrew Cristall out of the Kelowna Rockets. His PNHLE score is at 100. At the time of the list publication, Cristall had 20 points in 9 games played, one of the best players in the entire CHL for point production, and he's doing all of this at the ripe old age of 18. He's a left-wing forward, smallish kind of guy, only 5'10", but he already dominated the WHL last year with almost 100 points on the season. With the way he started out right now, it's very much looking like that 100-point marker is going to be an easy boundary to cross. He's such a great playmaker, and heading into the long-term future, this is a guy the Washington Capitals could really use to bolster up their forward core long-term. The 8th best prospect in the NHL is also a WHL guy. Drafted by the San Jose Sharks back in the 4th round of 2023, let's talk today about Luca Cagnoni. Because, playing out of the WHL's Portland Winterhawks, he started out his season with 11 points in 6 games played. The catch? He's a defenseman. So he's almost at 2 points a game, building off of his 64-point in 67-game campaign last year in the WHL too. This is why PNHLE ranks Cagnoni above Cristall, because Cagnoni being on defense makes his PNHLE score a lot higher, 113 to 100 for Cristall, despite Cristall of course having twice the amount of points pretty much. Cagnoni, though, is a very dynamic, edge-working prospect who's got a really good knack for creating offense, even though he's only 5'9". The numbers are great, but we're just going to have to wait and see how that translates to higher levels of play as he continues his career as a Sharks prospect. The 7th best prospect in the NHL, with a score of 116, is New Jersey Devils defenseman Seamus Casey. As we are seeing with Luke Hughes, the Michigan Wolverines have been a very good breeding ground for New Jersey Devils defensemen, and Seamus Casey is no different. 19 years old, he's a right-handed defenseman, 5'9", so he's also pretty small. But this season he started out his NCAA campaign with 8 points in 5 games, a very great showcase after the departure of Luke Hughes from this program. Casey was always a shifty, nifty, offensively minded defenseman, a guy who kind of reminded me of Quinn Hughes a little bit, but of course being right-handed instead. Casey is a prospect that you should be taking seriously despite his small size, because in the NCAA he has been a very good force playing off against men. The 6th best prospect in the NHL also has a PNHLE score of 116. It's Aaron Pionk, playing out of the University of Minnesota Duluth system in the NCAA. He's 20 years old, so a bit older than Seamus Casey, and he's a bit bigger too, 6'1", left-handed defenseman. But Aaron Pionk this season has started out his NCAA career with 6 points in 4 games, a very good step up from the USHL production he had last year, 36 points in 60 games. He's had a very strange development path, being a double undrafted player, and was initially taken by the Wild in the 2023 draft in the 5th round. So this is more of a project than anything, a guy who had spent extra time in the Minnesota high school leagues, eventually playing in the USHL, and then getting drafted by his hometown Minnesota Wild. It's a special feeling, equally complementing this very special story. Moving over on to the 5th best prospect in the NHL via NHLE equivalency scores, it's Rutger McGroarty out of the University of Michigan, Winnipeg Jets prospect. Now, McGroarty is a forward, so we're taking a break from the defenseman, going over to the center-left wing. He was a first-round guy taken by Winnipeg back in 2022, and last season with the Michigan Wolverines, he had 39 points in 39 games. Not bad for a freshman season in the NCAA. This season, though, Rutger McGroarty has 11 points in 5 games at the time of the list's publication, putting his number up there to over 2 points a game, a much stronger showcase for a guy that already showed off pretty well in last season's worth of play. McGroarty's a sniper, he can make plays, he can put the puck in the back of the net, and he's just an overall offensive dynamo that could really help the Winnipeg Jets long term. These are the types of guys that you want to build your team around if you're in Winnipeg, and you've got this weird sort of low-key rebuild, not really rebuild. You re-sign Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele to huge long-term deals type of rebuild. Rutger McGroarty, if he becomes as good as he can become, can help you out tremendously. Moving over onto the 4th best NHL prospect. Out of the Rochester Americans in the AHL, it is Jiri Kulich. 127 is his PNHLE score, a much higher one than all the other ones we have talked about, and his teammate Isak Rosen. But for Jiri Kulich, we had already talked about this and more in the 1 year later video, but he's a 19-year-old center drafted by the Sabres in the first round of 2022, and this season the guy has gotten off to a great start. 6 points, 4 games played in this early AHL season, after having 46 points in 62 games last year. Now, what separates Kulich from Isak Rosen is likely the age, because Kulich is a year younger. Rosen was drafted earlier. So even though their production is actually similar, the fact that Kulich is a year younger adds on some extra weight in the model of PNHLE, which is why his score is the way that it is. But either way, the Sabres have 2 very legit prospects in the AHL marinating, doing their thing, and scoring a boatload of points, which is why they're on this PNHLE list. And with that in mind, let's go over onto the top 3. Going over to the 3rd overall prospect in the NHL with a PNHLE score of 132, it is Hunter Brzustewicz out of the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL. Vancouver Canucks prospect that we will just not shut up about, because this guy had 19 points in 9 games played. He had 4 straight 3-point games. Now he's at 20 points in 10 games after the game on Saturday, but still, at the time of this list's publication, Hunter Brzustewicz was doing incredibly well, 2nd in the CHL in points at the time of this list publication. And of course, hockey is always changing, there are always different numbers. This list that was published on Saturday is not going to be completely accurate now if you checked everything out with the numbers and the mathematical data, but for the most recent edition of the list, he is 3rd. 19 points, 9 games, fantastic. Going over to the 2nd overall guy, should come as no surprise to anybody that Matvei Michkov is right here. Because as an 18-year-old forward in the KHL, he is up to 14 points in 14 games played. He is a point-per-game guy. He had taken some time off because he was sick a little bit, but for the most part, Matvei Michkov has still been good. He has still been dominant in the KHL, and even though his point production isn't too much better than it was last year, like last year he was already almost a point per game, now he is a point per game, just having that consistency there and the goal scoring, it is great. So for Matvei Michkov, Philadelphia Flyers fans, y'all are super excited for this guy, and for very good reason too. Moving over onto the number 1 prospect in the NHL with a PNHLE score of 163, it should come as no surprise that Josh Waugh out of the Montreal Canadiens is in here. He is 20 years old, first year of eligibility in the AHL, and he's got 9 points in 4 games played. Top player in the entire league. We made a video just about this a few days ago. He is the number 1 guy, and as a result, because his production is so out of this world bananas bonkers crazy, plus he's only 20, it favors very nicely in the PNHLE model, which is why he is 1st overall on this list. So, let's review everything once more. Number 1, Josh Waugh, 163 is his score. 2, you got Matvei Michkov, 146. Hunter Brzustewicz is number 3 with 132. Jiri Kulich, number 4 out of the Buffalo Sabres, 127. You've got Rutger McGroarty at number 5, 119. Aaron Pionk and Seamus Casey tied for 6th and 7th with 116. Luca Cagnoni is 8th with 113, Andrew Cristall is 9th with 100, and Isak Rosen is 10th with 99. Thoughts in the comment section below about this prospects list. I hope you enjoyed this video. and bye.